Well, we can go live now to Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister, Sergei Ryabkov. Mr. Ryabkov, it's a pleasure to have you on the programme with us today. First of all, why do you think the US remains unconvinced that Russia is in full compliance with the treaty?
I think it's very simple. The only reason for this to happen was that the US decided to untie itself from an arms control treaty that kept capabilities of the US in this area at zero level for decades. The US believed that given developments elsewhere in the world, and given the fact that they believe they found a pretext to accuse Russia on wrongdoing, that would be the right time to withdraw. And this is just one part of a serious, one element of a serious similar efforts by the US to withdraw from international treaties, agreements and arrangements in the area of arms control and non-proliferation.
Given the situation we have now, would you say that a new arms race is unavoidable?
No, I wouldn't say so. Rather, I would point to the fact that Russia showed utmost responsibility for European and global security, declaring through President Putin's statement a unilateral moratorium for fielding of this type of capabilities if and when Russia develops, though until and unless the US does the same anywhere in the world. So the choice is the US, in US hands. The US should decide what path to follow. We propose that would be the path of restraint and responsibility. What would be the choice of this administration or whoever will be in the White House after the elections next year depends on completely and fully on the US side. All offers are made by Russia.
Well, having said that, the NATO Secretary General has reacted. He's saying that there are no new US NATO missiles in Europe, but ever more Russian ones. Can you confirm this?
I can only say that we follow definitely with care and attention what is being said by executives at NATO and nationally in different states of the North Atlantic Alliance. We are not convinced by the repeated statements by these representatives that NATO does not have any actual plans or intentions to deploy such missiles when they will be developed by the US. Plans, as we learn it from the past, can be changed quite rapidly, and pretexts for anything can be easily found in the current tumultuous water of international policies. I want also to stress that irrespective of what would be the actual so-called military response to the Russian deployment of 9M729, this is the missile in question, or SSC-8 according to NATO qualification, the situation will deteriorate. If NATO go at seas with new deployment, if it goes to the air with their new missiles, it will be equally destabilizing. But in terms of fielding something on the ground, I would say that early warning system of any country does not possess a capability to distinguish with a nuclear armed missile of that type from the conventional arms. So if NATO says that we only will go conventional, there will be, for us, in turn, no choice but consider this to be the worst case scenario, which is nuclear. This is the logic of deterrence, and unfortunately this is a very difficult and dangerous logic of current developments in the area of arms control.
So there are a lot of people who were thinking that the demise of the INF treaty might increase the risk of war actually starting rather than just being more devastating once underway. Do you believe that's true?
Situation as of now turns to the worse once again. We should focus on keeping the rest of the international arms control architecture intact. First and foremost, it relates to the so-called New START treaty limiting the strategic nuclear weapons. With respect to INF, Our proposal is on the table. NATO should follow Russia's example and declare a unilateral moratorium on deployment of these capabilities of intermediate range and shorter range as they were prohibited by INF until today. With respect to 9M729, I think no one has to worry about this missile because it is not a missile of an intermediate range. It has never been tested to this range in Russia, and we have never received any information from the US or from anywhere else in the NATO alliance why they turn to believe that this missile constitutes a material breach by Russia of our obligations under the INF Treaty.
Considering the state of foreign affairs now, would you say that the world is a safer place today than during the Cold War?
Well, depending on what area we are looking for. In the area of hard security and arms control and non-proliferation, I wouldn't describe situation as such. Rather, I would say on the famous symbolic clock that shows the time left to the nuclear conflict, we have unfortunately passed yet another minute towards the midnight. We should work deliberately, focusedly. We should invest additional energy and political capital to stop this dangerous development. Everything now depends on responsibility of the US decision makers.
In the long run, who will gain the most from not being bound by the treaty?
No one will gain from this. Everyone's security will be in jeopardy, and unfortunately, contrary to what President Trump is saying, suggesting that this incredible arms race and investment in military hardware are nonsensical things, this will continue. But Russia will never lose in this arms race. We have shown earlier our ability to find cost-effective answers to any challenges we face, and I'm sure this will happen once again after the demise of the INF Treaty by the United States.
OK, let's move on to other important developments in US-Russia ties now. President Trump has imposed a second round of sanctions against Russia over its alleged role in the Skripal poisoning case. Does this come as a surprise to you?
No, we have followed this since last year when it was first announced. Besides, the Trump administration regularly imposes sanctions and other restrictive measures upon Russia. We have adapted ourselves to these actions of the US. We have found ways how to even effectivize parts of our economy, especially agriculture and some others. So we are not deterred by this action. I think this is part of the domestic politics more than anything else, but it's mostly unfortunate that the rest of what has been called US-Russian partnership some years ago is now being sacrificed because of the demands of some who simply use relations to Russia or with Russia as a tool in a domestic US infighting.
It seems that anti-Russia sentiment is high in the US at the moment. Could these new sanctions perhaps have anything to do with the 2020 presidential election, do you think?
Well, my answer tends to be positive and not negative. I think everything in relation to Russia should be put in the context of the growing campaigning in the run-up to elections. We regard this exactly from this perspective, and we are in no way shaken in our resolve to follow our own path, to figure out what we should do in order to defend ourselves and protect ourselves from negative effects of the US sanctions, first and foremost in terms of going away from the US financial system and departing from dollar as a universal #1 means of payment in the world.
Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, thank you for your time.